Hello, hello, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It is the month of October, and my plan today is to give you guys a little bit of a garden update about what the garden's looking like right now. So, we are on to a new era of the garden, which is seed saving. So, today I'm going to show you guys how I am doing two different kinds of seed saving, or doing seed saving on two different things from the garden. One is tomatoes. So I've got a couple different kinds of tomatoes here. I'm going to show you guys how I am getting the seeds from those to hopefully be able to grow some new tomatoes next year. The other one is marigolds. So I already have quite a few marigold seeds collected, but I want to get even more. And I've got some dried marigolds that I will show you. This one's pretty easy, how to get the seeds out of there and what the process of that was like. So first things first, I'm going to give you a little tour of what's going on in the garden, how it was looking when I harvested all of these things. And so that'll come up first, and then I'll show you what I'm doing to get the seeds out of these things. So here is the garden in all of her chaotic glory. You can see tomatoes interspersed with, again, the biggest marigolds that I have ever seen in my life. There were still quite a few red tomatoes at this point, and so here is me just picking all of those off. Sorry for the puppy noises. I'm trying to record with puppies. These are the marigolds. Once they're dried out, that's when we can get the seeds from them. It's even better usually if the stems are more dried out, but that's okay. Here is the full tomato haul. So first things first, you got to make sure you have the right vessels for getting everything that you need. I've got a few of these deli containers because we are going to take the tomato seeds out of a few of these tomatoes, put them into these, and then fill those up with water. There's already some tomato seeds in that one. First thing I'm going to do though is the marigolds. So we have our vessels for that. I've got these marigolds that I picked when they were already dead and dying, and then I've had them drying here for quite a while. So these can get a little bit messy, but they are pretty easy to deal with. I'm going to choose this one first because it doesn't have any of the flowers, and that's what tends to get the most messy. So this is our vessel that we're going to be putting them into. I also have it labeled. I do think labeling is very important. These are huge marigolds. They ended up, like you saw in the video, just biggest marigolds I have ever seen. So I'm excited to grow them again next year. So I'm just going to do this on the table and probably make a bit of a mess. We're just going to kind of take the stem off, crack that open, and try to get in there to the seeds. Sorry if that was shaky. This one actually, because it's nice and dry, came off pretty easily. And then this is what our individual seeds are going to look like on the marigold. So want to just get all of that outside skin off, and you end up having something that looks like this, where you can kind of see that all of the seeds are more exposed. And we can just pull those off, and that's seeds. See, pretty easy. Just pull that bottom part right off. These are the remnants of doing a couple of flowers. Got a ton of seeds here, and I will continue to gather seeds. I might try to fill this whole thing up so I can give away as many seeds as possible too. That's really the great thing about having abundance in the garden, is the ability to give some of it away, or give away abundance for next year. So yeah, this one is a little bit messy, but overall really, really easy to get seeds from old marigolds. So now we're going to go back to our tomatoes. So I have two different types of tomatoes here. These are obviously bigger. These are like a slicer style of tomato. And then I've got cherry tomatoes. So the way that I go about harvesting these is a slightly different tomato to tomato, but the process that they're going to go through is going to be the same. So the seeds will get squeezed out into these two containers. The big container for the bigger tomatoes, the smaller container for the smaller tomatoes. That's how I'm making it work with my brain. And then those seeds will get water filled up to about halfway up their containers, and then that they'll sit in that water for a day or two, and I'll change the water a couple times. I'll bring you guys along for that process as well. So with these cherry tomatoes, I often will end up with a few that have split. So I don't necessarily want to keep the ones that have split, especially if they've sat around for a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and harvest the seeds for them and then throw like the fruit away of this. So with the cherry tomatoes, it's really easy, especially if they have split, because you can literally just squeeze them into here. But one of these gives you quite a few seeds. We also really, I mean, our cherry tomatoes went really crazy this year. I think it was just the really great south facing garden that we had. But I mean, we have about 6 pounds of tomatoes in the freezer right now, and at least 3 of those pounds are of cherry tomatoes. So me and my brother are gonna make sauce, hopefully, in the next month or so. And so as you can see, I'm just squeezing all of those kind of on their, like where they split. I'm just using that split already for my advantage. So yeah, that's a very easy way to do cherry tomatoes. We're left with this sort of slimy seed mixture. The reason why we need to put water on there and rinse it out a couple times is to try to get rid of as much of that slime as we can. And in the end, we're going to like spread them out on a paper towel and let them dry. And hopefully most of that casing goes away, because otherwise the seeds won't be able to sprout in the spring, I guess. I've also never done this before with tomatoes or marigolds. I have seeds saved really successfully from basil and from arugula in the past. So for the bigger tomatoes, it is a little bit of a more intensive process and slightly messier. So what I do for these ones is I kind of just chop a hole in the top as if I was just going to save it for the freezer, and then I just squeeze around the sides and see what I can get out. And actually, this is working very well. And this one does seem to have a decent amount of well-developed seeds. Try not to let any of the huge chunks get in there, but trying to get all of those seeds out. Again, this gets a bit messy, a bit messier than the other one. So this one was a little bit less ripe, was more because it had possibly something in there that I don't want to eat. So this one, not as squishy. My hands are like so squishy, or so just like slimy right now. Okay, so yeah, this one has, oh, and this, you can see this really well. Let's see if I can get this held up to you guys. But you can see all those seeds on there, this sort of gelatinous inside of a tomato. And yeah, that's just what we want to get all in there. It's kind of it's a pretty satisfying situation. And this is, I mean, this is so many seeds. Again, this was 2 pieces of fruit. And you're going to see in a second just how many seeds there were in just these few pieces of fruit. So again, like next year, I'll try to plant a bunch of these. Hopefully the germination rate is decent. And then I'll be able to give away, or, you know, have for myself, but also, yeah, give away tons of tomato sprouts next year. All right, so this is what they look like just right after being squeezed out. Again, you can tell like tomatoes are so interesting because they're so different type to type, right? So this was from our cherry tomatoes. This is from our bigger slicer tomatoes. This is the rest of our harvest that's just going to go straight into the freezer. That's our trash. And yeah. All right, the next little bit of the video is going to be the process to get these ready to be saved in some different containers. And this is what the seeds look like after sitting in water for a little bit. You can see a lot of that sort of extra stuff around them floats to the top and the seeds sink to the bottom, which is what we want. And there's also some, it'll look like it's seeds that are leaving, but they're probably most likely seeds that are not viable because they were floating to the top there. After being rinsed a few times, this is how they look. See, a lot of that slimy stuff has gone. I pour them onto a doubled up piece of paper towel and then spread them out the best that I can so that they can dry. Okay, so it's a couple days later. Last y'all saw, I had put the tomato seeds onto paper towels and they were still really, really wet. But now it's been a couple days, and so they are fully dried out and like fully stuck to these paper towels. So here are the seeds from the big tomatoes and the seeds from the little tomatoes. At this point, I have done this enough this season that I can tell the difference without having them labeled, but I will say, like, labels are your best friend when it comes to stuff like this, because you think that you're going to remember and then you don't. All that's left to do is peel these off of here and put them into their vessel that they will live in until next season. So that's what it looks like once you're all done. And now we have a decent amount of seeds. This is a huge container for this amount of seeds. I do know that. It's just the one that I had. But we've got a decent amount of seeds. I mean, probably at least 20 or 30. So if all of these germinate, I mean, that's a lot of plants. That's a lot of tomatoes. Okay, now we're going to move on to our cherry tomatoes, which I already do have just way more cherry tomato seeds because, again, these were insanely prolific in our garden this year. I might be into the hundreds of cherry tomato seeds. We'll see. I also have a whole nother bunch of marigolds to get the seeds from. So that's definitely the most successful seed save of the year is the marigolds. I'm going to be giving away marigolds like nobody's business. I'm kind of interested to see next year if we're fighting marigolds at the edge of the raised bed. All right, and now I'm done with the cherry tomatoes as well. Got a lot of those. So this is the end of the video. And I will say, I am going to count this as my amateur hour episode 2. I forgot to say that at the beginning, but this is another time of me like trying something and seeing if it works. So we will have to follow up on this in the spring to see if any of these actually germinate or do anything that they're supposed to. But I will say, whether it's collecting 3 beans from your one green bean, your one garden bean that actually made it to adulthood and the beans dried out enough that I think that they're usable again next year, or if it is a, salsa container full of seeds. I do think stuff like this is worth it. And this is one of the slow hobbies that I personally enjoy so much in my life, which is gardening and planting things and watching things grow. Sometimes watching things fail as well. That's a little bit part of life and definitely part of the garden process. There's always this thing that is said by gardeners, which is like, a master gardener has killed more plants than you could possibly imagine, has killed more plants than an amateur gardener who is beating himself up for the plants that they have accidentally killed. So yeah, I just hope that maybe that inspires y'all to do some of the same sort of thing. And otherwise, I will catch you on the next one. Bye!